yesterday. William Byron's win at Texas was not only significant for him, it does move him into the round of 8, but it was very significant for Hendrick Motorsports. The 300th trip to victory lane in the NASCAR Cup Series for that organization. So many different drivers have won for Rick Hendrick, and after the race, he reflected upon what this win means and some of the drivers that have been in his cars.
I think about it a lot, the drivers that I've had, and I really think the most rewarding thing to me is to see guys like Chase, when I think I met him at 14, and become a champion, and William and Jeff and Jimmie Johnson, and the crew chiefs. I think about it all the time. Had we not won that race, it wouldn't be a Hendrick Motorsports, and it wouldn't be 300 wins. So I'm very, very, very thankful for that.
And that first win happened at Martinsville Speedway back in 1984 with Jeffrey Bodine. And since then, drivers like Tim Richmond and Darrell Waltrip, Ken Schrader, Ricky Rudd. Obviously, we talk about the drivers who have won the most for Hendrick Motorsports, Jeff Gordon and Jimmie Johnson. Terry Labonte, a championship at Hendrick Motorsports. All 4 drivers that are in the cars now have all won for Rick Hendrick: William Byron, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Larson. And a lot of memorable ones along the way. Lee Spencer, let me start with you. Among the 300 victories, some could be memorable in more ways. Is there any Hendrick win that stands out to you above all others?
I think when you look at the history of Hendrick Motorsports and some of the tragedy they faced, like at Martinsville, and then to come back and win Martinsville and to have the success that they have, every time you go to Martinsville, you think about that probably the darkest moment in the company's history, right? But the fact that they have persevered and have gone on since then and just built such a juggernaut in NASCAR, from a standpoint of starting where Rick did, and he talked about it, and he expressed the fact that it all comes down to people. He realizes that in motorsport, he realized that on the car side, whatever success that they have accomplished, it starts with the people that he has hired in the past. And he talks about the longevity of how long, the people have stayed with Hendrick along the way. And I think looking at it more than anything, it really comes down time and again to seeing them win at Martinsville, and just it kind of gives you all the feels.
Yeah, it does. Alan Cavanna, I know you grew up probably the biggest Rusty Wallace fan that I know. So with that said, is there a positive memory of a Hendrick Motorsports win for you?
We'll stick to the positive ones because, Jeff Gordon, he won a lot off of Rusty's bumper. But it's always the Brickyards for me. Growing up, that first Brickyard hit, I think I was, 11 years old, and that was just the biggest race in history to me. It still kind of is, just for a person of my age. And for Jeff Gordon getting that win, it's just so memorable. His first one there and his last one there, because winning 5 there was such a huge deal. It was a little later in his career. I was able to cover it. I remember interviewing him. That was a big deal for me personally, but for him to have that longevity and still be winning at the Brickyard after all those years, I thought that was very cool. And the Casey Kane Brickyard win, remember they were 3 wide, that kind of came out of nowhere. That was a good one. And Jimmie's 7th, because who saw that coming? If you remember that race and where he was running during that race as one of the championship 4, for him to win that race compared to where he was earlier on, it's just the perseverance that it showed. It was a very Hendrick type win where, you stick in it to the end, and Jimmie Johnson pulled off number 7. So I could name a dozen of them, but those are 3 that really stick out.
Yeah, I agree. And the Brickyard one for Jeff Gordon was certainly one that jumped out at me. Twice as many cars showed up to qualify than were actually able to qualify that day. And his second career victory was pretty big. And like both of you, there are a lot of them that stand out to me. The 1997 Daytona 500. I don't know that Jeff Gordon really had any help that day when he won that race. And as it turned out, it ended up being a 1-2-3 finish for Hendrick Motorsports with Terry Labonte and Ricky Craven. But one that really stands out to me, just because we came back from Texas, and I'm thinking about this one. It was the fall race in 2007, and Jimmie Johnson had already well established himself as a contender and a champion in NASCAR, but a lot of times he made it look easy. And for me, this was one that really showed what Jimmie Johnson had as a driver. And in the closing laps, he was going toe to toe with Matt Kenseth lap after lap after lap after lap. And to the point where he would have to give up putting on the charge, cool off his tires, and then just relentlessly go back after him. And when it was all said and done, Jimmie Johnson was able to take the lead with just a couple laps to go and go on to victory lane. But to me, that was impressive. Jimmie was obviously in a Hendrick car, but to me, that was the one that was, hey, it's not just Chad Knaus building a bunch of fast race cars. Jimmie Johnson showed a lot of grit for what he was able to do inside the race car, and obviously continued that, a 7-time champion, an 83-time race winner, and all of that. But to think that between Jimmie Johnson and Jeff Gordon alone, they account for actually more than half of those 300 victories is pretty special. So really neat to see what happened yesterday, Lee and Alan.
I think it's big, and you could tell how excited Rick was to hit this milestone. And, you know, you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, Rick's up on the pit box and it's 100 degrees out there and he's not breaking a sweat. And, you know, I just think the magnitude of this accomplishment, when you think about, you know, companies like Petty that have been there, you know, you talked about Team Penske earlier, but Hendrick just year after year. And when they do have a off season, it just seems really strange because you expect them to be weekly, yearly contenders. And, you know, one name that you didn't mention among those wins, and I think we all thought about it a lot, was how different Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s career was once he got to Hendrick. You know, it was a different environment for him, but he was still able to go there and win races, and a lot of races. And I think that was a really good fit for him during like the second chapter of his Cup career.
Yeah, and none of it's an accident, right? After all these years, 30-plus years of winning, Lee mentioned they have so many employees. If you really get to know how many employees have been there for so long, building these engines, building the cars, and it's gone through every generation of race car. I mean, the success has sustained itself. I always refer to them like the Yankees. Everybody wants to play for the Yankees. So when you're a driver like William Byron, you grow up watching these winners, watching these drivers getting trophies, and then you want to be that. So they're attracting the next generation of good driver, of good engineer, good everything every time they get one of these wins. So now they're just not succeeding now. They'll succeed 10, 20 years from now because of what they're doing. And I just think of my own sports fandom. Like, I'm from New England. Would have been a lot easier if I was a New England Patriots fan, right? But no, I chose to be a Bills fan. Wouldn't my life have been so much better if I was a Hendrick Motorsports fan? No, I was a Rusty fan, so a little more heartbreak. So if you are a Hendrick Motorsports fan, congrats to you, because you've led a good sports fandom life.